Today I'm going to be facilitating a personal conversation with you, which is why I'm choosing to be down here on the floor. I also feel like I'm with my friends if I'm closer to you. And so this conversation is going to be one where we are co-mentoring each other. I don't have all the answers for this. If I did, I probably wouldn't be here. But I'm so baffled by the topic that I think it requires us to make a commitment to being willing to co-mentor one another. So there's a basic assumption that I'm starting with this morning, and it is that everyone in this room made a commitment to the value of team diversity, or you wouldn't be in this room. You made that commitment when you said yes to cross-cultural ministries. So we're not going to start with the basis being do we need to be committed to team diversity? That's the basic assumption. We've already committed to it. For 20 years, we have worked in the Philippines, and we have enjoyed the nuances of Filipino culture. Both daughters were born and raised in the Philippines, and they are extremely proud of their Philippine birth certificates. I want to tell a story that goes back to the point when my eldest daughter, Hannah, was 5 years old. We were at the dinner table one night, and she asked her dad and I, "Why don't we know any Filipino people?" Baffled by her request, we asked her, "What do you mean?" "We know a lot of Filipinos." We proceeded to list all of her Filipino friends. We even added names of people that we knew, people that had had dinner in our homes, people that we had been to church with, people that we had fellowshipped with. With a blank look on her face, she said, again, keeping in mind she was 5, she said, "They're not Filipino." Again, being the proper parents, baffled by what this 5-year-old understood Filipino to mean, we said to her, "Honey, go find Tita Juliet." And Tita was a close family friend, Filipino friend, that was living with us. And we said, after you find her, we want you to look at her. We want you to look at her hair. We want you to look at her eyes. We want you to look at her nose. We want you to just look at her. She went off, found Tita, was gone for a few minutes, came back. As Dave and I were seated at the table, she put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Mommy, I never saw that before." Now imagine her world at the age of 5. 5 years old, and was unable to see racial differences. Completely blinded to her for the first 5 years of her life. And sadly, on that day, she saw something she'd never seen before. She grew up a lot that day. But if I asked each one of you to think back to your childhoods, on what day did you know that you were different? Each one of you would have a story to tell. Now, I think I must have been a slow learner, because I was in grade 5 when I woke up and realized I'm different than somebody else. And that probably says a lot about where I was born and where I was raised. But in grade 5, my best friend and I were out on the playground at recess at school playing, and somewhere in the conversation, I don't know how it came up, but I said that I was adopted. And she flung around and said, "You're what?" And I said, "I'm adopted." She began to cry. She felt so sorry for me. She cried so hard the teacher came. And then the teacher knew I was adopted. And the little girl, my best friend, could not get a handle on the fact that I was adopted. I didn't know there was anything different about being adopted. That day, I found out I was a little bit different. We both saw something that was not visible to us beforehand. Well, today we're going to examine what I think is actually a skill. It's not necessarily a value. I think it is something that can be learned. And it relates to our ability to understand the complexities and the contributions that diversity can make to the strategies and initiatives in our ministries. But in order for us to do this, we're going to take a step back and we're going to examine what some of the characteristics of diverse teams are. And if you want to call teams partnerships, that's fine with me. We're going to talk about the benefits and the challenges that go along with diverse teaming. And I initially was going to have us ponder the strategic value. But if you're like me and you've already listened to Don Johnson's work and Bob Roberts' work, and the list goes on, I don't think we need to ponder the strategic value. But let's see where we end up here today. Last night I had an opportunity to open Ambassador Bob's book, and there's a chapter in it on diversity. And he defines diversity, catch this, as embracing the other in us. Let me say that again, embracing the other in us. Wow. I was very much taken by that, and I hope you will be as well as we go along here. So on the commitment level, there's no doubt within this group about the value of diversity. But there might be a question about why we're spending time on it. So I want to read to you some of the quotes that I've heard within the past 3 days. And I think this will prove my point. Jose told us on day one that Latin Americans were told by foreigners that they cannot do the work, implying either they're not capable or some other reason. Pastor James also told us that Africans have been marginalized, subjugated, dominated. You gave us Christ, but you did not empower us. Reverend Jung said, when you sever the body, there is no whole body. The word segregation, I've heard that a few times. Bob Roberts said, we're lost, we're blinded within our own culture. And most recently, I attended a banquet in the Philippines, and it's a very unique opportunity. It was hosted by the Philippine Missions Association, and the entire purpose of this banquet was for the Philippine National Mission Organizations to express their thanksgiving, their thanks, to long-standing mission organizations that have worked in the Philippines. SIL Philippines has been there for over 50 years. We were one of the recipients of their thanks. However, when the MC took his position that evening to hand out the certificates, his opening comments were, regardless of how you feel about foreign missionaries having been in our country, we do owe them a debt of gratitude for the evangelization of our nation. Now, what kind of a mixed message do you hear there? Larry just very, very clearly said, you never start with a clean slate. You go with a package. He also suggested that you have power, but you must learn to mitigate it. You must learn to compensate for the power that goes with the package. And I think that's what this module is going to help us do, and therefore it is a skill. I've asked Luke if he would start by reading just a few verses from Psalm 139.
For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place.
My frame was not hidden from you. My frame, my bones, my being the all that is within me, was not hidden from you. Think of the many different frames around the world, all acknowledged at birth by God, all acknowledged by God, the Creator, the author of diversity. What comes to your mind when you think of the word diversity? How would you define it? Variety. What else? The richness of Christ. The body.
Reflection of God.
Reflection of God. Let's take a peek at what Webster has to say. Diverse. Unlike in character or qualities, diversity. The state or quality of being diverse, the state or quality of being different. So if we take the phrase team diversity, what kind of a definition could you come up with?
Learning how to be unified just in light of all the qualities that are different.
Okay, in light of all these different qualities, learning to be unified. Someone else?
Different people working together.
Different people working together. How different one's team members are from one another. I want you to picture being invited to a social gathering. You know you will know no one in the room. You've been told there's 30 to 40 people there, and the group is very diverse. You enter into the room, and everyone is standing, mingling. And as they're mingling, you are scanning the room. You're looking for your spot in the room. Freeze right there. Tell me, what are you looking for? You're all smiling. Tell me, what are you looking for? Oh, it all. I think you all said the same thing, but say it out loud. Someone you know, but you know there's nobody there you know, but you're looking for it anyway. What else are you looking for?
Similarity.
Some kind of similarity. Someone that's going to help you feel a little bit connected in the room. Is anybody looking for the most difficult connection possible in that room at that time? No. We look for the familiar, we look for our default setting is to look for the connection. Look for the easiest, the path of least resistance, that easy connection. But you know, even if you entered into the room and the room was a homogeneous grouping, very like in kind, do you know you'll do the exact same thing even then? So it's not about the diversity in the group. What is it about? Our comfort. Take a look at this next slide here. Here's a homogeneous group that's all focused on the same activity, and yet look at the uniqueness that's represented. We can still see the uniqueness of God's creation. I was struck this past couple of weeks by the number of evidences of appreciation of diversity. Leadership initiatives that are taking place worldwide. This is a group of African, Asian, and Latin American women representing 30 different nations. And they're all gathered together for one purpose. This is out of the Haggai Institute. But there's also evidences in our world where diversity is being appreciated that were not even conceivable 5-10 years ago. Let's take a peek at some of those. What new elements of diversity are we witnessing in the U.S. presidential election? Gender, ethnicity. How about TV shows? What are you seeing on TV these days that you wouldn't have seen 5, 10 years ago? What elements of diversity? Age, gender, disabilities, sexual orientation, civil status, ethnicity, children's toys. Interestingly, 1967, Mattel, a major toy company here in the US, tried to introduce the first African-American Barbie doll. It failed. It was recalled. Anybody know why? 1967. Somebody said it had to have failed because of the name they gave to the Barbie. You know what they named her? Colored Francie. That caused you to wince, didn't it? But in 1967, that was not the reason why the doll failed. It failed because of racial tensions between black power and white supremacy. It also failed because the doll itself was manufactured as a copycat doll of the original Barbie. So none of the nuances of the African American culture were represented except for the color of skin and hair. And lastly, church groups. We're seeing cell groups, house churches that are representing diversity. International businesses also have gotten onto this as well. This is McDonald's in the Philippines. It offers McFried chicken and rice. It offers mixed spaghetti. I don't think those are products that you have in your McDonald's. Diversity. As a table group, I want you to look at the people that are at your table. Pretend that you are my 5-year-old daughter and you have been asked to look at who you're sitting with. On a piece of paper in the center of your table with a marker, as a group, this is not an individual activity, as a group, I want you to start talking to one another. Write down the number of different elements of diversity that you can witness at your table. You've only got about 2 minutes, so work quickly. You can put E. It's funny. Announce that to the group. Oh, that's cute.
Things that we notice or things that we know?
Both. All right, looks like you got a good start. Catherine's going to help come and scribe for us here. Let's see how many different elements we can offer to this list. If your group already has some of the things that are on the list, please don't repeat it. All right, let's start. Where shall we start? How about right here, table 2? Why don't you give us your top three?
Gender, ethnicity, language.
Gender, ethnicity, language. You're going to have to write faster, Catherine. Neatness doesn't count. All right, table number 5. Marilee.
Yes, we said, I'm just going to eliminate the ones that
Yes.
color, education, and age.
Color, education, and age. How about table number 1? Do you have anything you can add to that?
Our upbringing, our culture, background, and then also the different organizations that we work for.
Okay. Personal backgrounds, organizations that we work for. Table 6. What can you add? Anything?
Different clothing, nationalities, different kinds of hair.
I think they were desperate. Clothing, hair, and what was the other one? What was the second one? Nationalities. Okay, I think that's up there. All right, table 7.
We put down marital status, geography, and field job experience.
Okay, years of experience, marital status, civil status. Table 3.
Yeah, the only difference we had was quantity of hair.
That's good, that's good. Table 8.
Eye color
Eye color.
and Mac or PC users.
Oh. All right. And table 4. Anything you can add?
Organization that we work with,
Okay.
status, not marital status, but more within, positions in the organization.
Okay, positions of authority.
TCK, that may be experience or background.
Personal background.
And the last one was facial hair. I was being isolated again.
No. Facial hair. Oh. Later you're going to have to work with that list, so you may regret some of the things you've just put up there. All right, thank you, Catherine. When creating a team or a new partnership, and it is your role to do the formation of this team, I mean, obviously we've got some qualities up here that may be extremely important to that, and some that you might want to just eliminate from the list later. But which of those characteristics do you pay attention to? Forming a group or a new team for the sake of diversity is worthless. Diversity for diversity's sake, it doesn't get you anywhere. But diversity for strategic reasons. But how would you begin to look at the list of things, the differences that we have here? How would you begin to decide which qualities do I need to pay attention to? Let's leave those as rhetorical questions for now. One of the best reasons that I saw for the strategic use of team diversity was actually written in the concept paper for the Wycliffe School of Global Engagement. Did the participants also see that? Whoops. I guess I should show you my list. I was guessing what this group might say, and this was my list for you. Processing styles, how do you determine decision-making processes? Difference of opinions. People that you know always hold the opposing opinion. No matter what yours is, they will have the other side. Culture, being different from ethnicity. You may be from the same country, but you certainly don't have the same culture. Age, I think most of the others. Financial equity. Now let's go on to this quote. And Marilee, is this yours? Would you read that for us?
Global demographic trends suggest that the Christian workforce that carries out the future work of Bible translation and literacy will be an increasingly diverse body. From geography to gender, from creed to color, we must act now to build a cadre of leaders ready to advance the Bible translation cause in a manner consistent with the inherent diversity of the kingdom.
does that tell us? How does that quote help us in thinking about team diversity? What jumps off the page?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice? Why do we need to talk about this topic?
The kingdom.
Future. It's kingdom related. Let's consider another thought. I'll let you just read silently. How do you respond to something like that? Jamie?
I guess, I think we not only need diversity for this, but for the very fact that God has created us different so that we can reach different people. We have different strengths and skills. And so if we have a team that is all focusing on the same thing, the rest of us are irrelevant.
Thank you. Good insight. Linda?
Our ends have always been diverse. We've always imagined all these different people groups that will someday be in heaven because of Bible translation. But now realizing that even the means for getting there, for getting to that end, needs to reflect the diversity. We've always appreciated the diversity of the ends.
Mm-hmm. The means is changing. That actually is going to lead us right back to our next table activity. You have all had experiences with diverse teaming already. I have no doubt about that. I want you to talk about what some of the benefits are. Can you list at your table 2 to 3 benefits of taking the time to invest in diverse teaming? And then take a few more minutes and come up with what are some of the challenges. If you could do 2 benefits, 2 challenges at each table, that would set us in good stead. Go ahead.
But we'll let you say what you
So you're basically answering the question, why bother?
different points of view of the same thing. More complete view, let's say.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
I feel like you're gonna pass out.
Yeah, and I think that we just, because of that, it's more challenging for us to be understand what it's just.
So they bring the knowledge of the context then.
Do you have a couple benefits and a couple challenges? Are we all set?
One of the other challenges, when you have a very diverse team, a lot of perspectives, how do you come to one decision? Yeah, how do you
All right, let's come back together then. If I could ask the one that has done the scribing, if you'd be willing to share what your benefits are, your challenges. I want to create the most difficult picture first, and then we'll just wipe it all away with all the benefits. So, who'd like to start with their challenges? All right, let's start back at table 5 then. Can you stand so everybody can hear you?
Sure. Okay, our wonderful multicultural team here.
Yes.
Our challenges are, we're limited to single-minded perspective, which allows for a lot of misunderstandings. And one of us mentioned a proverb, reminded us of a proverb. If you want to go a short distance, go alone. But if you want to go a long distance, go together.
Wow. Okay. And so the first challenge was miscommunication?
Yeah, miscommunication, and then you're also limited to a single-minded perspective.
Okay, single-focused.
Your culture, your way of thinking, your way of communicating.
Okay, and what goes with you from behind. All right, table 6.
It takes longer to come to a decision, a unified decision, and also it can be expensive. In other words, there's the additional the time that people have to spend to come to a decision, and also possibly additional travel, meeting time, so it has to be costly.
Okay, the cost effectiveness is a very serious question that needs to be answered. In fact, in my research for this module, I actually came across an international business that had a consultant come in to evaluate, is culturally diverse teaming cost effective? And the consultant said, no. You know why? He said that the end product, the quality of the end product is improved, but the amount of money and time that it takes defeats the quality. Now, that was only one of the many hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of international businesses that are indeed saying it is worth it and we must do it. I found it fascinating to say that. I did find one that said it was not. Okay, next table, back here, 7.
We said having diverse opinions that clash and also hurting each other out of ignorance.
Oh, boy, that's so true. Thank you, Clara. Wow. Yes, table 8.
Added time for team building, maintaining the team, working through conflict, you need that extra time and energy. And also, in any given team, there will be an imbalance of power that one group will tend to dominate or one individual or whoever, just naturally by who they are.
Mm-hmm. Excellent insights.
Our 2 challenges were the cost of taking time to invest in forming a diverse team, a thoughtfully formed one, and then also working together to make it effective as a team. And then the second one was is identifying a common goal. When people are diverse and coming to the team, they often will have a diversity also, vision and goals for what they want to accomplish.
And every stakeholder is going to have his own little piece of where the priority should be placed. Boy, those are challenges. All right. Table 3, my beloved table. What did you come up with?
We've heard these before. Greater chance for misunderstanding, and then also the taking longer.
time.
Okay, again, the cost effectiveness question. Table 2.
The interaction between people in different positions of authority and power, and also just the challenge of reaching consensus. The more people that you have with differing perspectives.
Okay. Decision-making processes look very different. And the opportunities for miscommunication are far greater. Did we do table 1? Not yet.
We have difficulties to communicate. And also
The group's identity?
your group identity that you bring to the
Oh, okay, the individual group identity. All right. Those are indeed challenges. I want you to imagine that you are a member of an eight-person team, and it is a very diverse team. And you have been tasked to work on one particular strategy. After 6 months of working together, what do you think your pattern of functioning will look like? How many of you have had an opportunity to work on a diverse, which is inclusive of cross-culture, but diversity meaning all of these things, not just cross-cultural? How many of you have actually had the opportunity to work on a team like this? Okay. In your worst case scenario, after 6 months of working together, give us a picture of what it might look like. Sandy.
Frustration, talking about the same things over and over again, trying to understand each other.
Okay. Someone else.
Communication breakdown, stop talking, just giving up.
Given up, hopelessness. Yes.
Fragmentation into smaller groups that are more intense. Like you have a 9-person group, 2 people, 4 people, 3 people.
Okay, and the separation of powers. Who has voice in the room, who doesn't have voice in the room? James?
Kind of the same thing, a polarization of perspectives where you're meeting together for the sake of the meeting, but really not communicating.
Boy, you've used the right word. I have also been parts of teams where after 6 months, because you do go through a honeymoon phase where everyone is energetic and you do think this is all going to work great, and then somewhere along the line you realize you've turned into a dysfunctional team. You're not functioning well anymore. And as James said, I really did like the word he used there too. There's a polarization that takes place. And I'm not so sure that I've chosen the right words for this slide, but if you can imagine this, on the left-hand side, it's those that are being marginalized, which means these are the people that in the room that no longer have voice. They're being overlooked, they're being sidelined, they're being ostracized. They are there physically, but are playing no part anymore. And then on the right-hand side, on the opposite side, I'm trying to get the picture of the people that we have put into the position of being overly focused on. Their words are overemphasized. Whatever they say, everybody just agrees. So you've got the no voice and the too much voice, and then everybody else is in the middle. What causes this dynamic to go into effect? Because if we were going to predict that every diverse team after 6 months was going to look like this, then we might as well just forget this whole idea of diverse teaming.
I've been on very homogeneous teams that have the same problem.
Excellent point. Thank you for sharing that. That's a very good point.
Communication, lack of trust, and just not taking time to build a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Sandy?
I think it focus on tasks. We get frustrated with all the process, and we just want to get something done. And so we marginalize people in order to do the task.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
The lack of a really defined point of reference.
Meaning what the task is?
No, like what's the calendar? You said it was this at one you're saying, like, push
Okay.
back and get angry.
All right, so frustration over what the point of reference is. What else leads to this?
When there's lack of flexibility amongst team members, people hold to their own point of view too strongly.
Okay.
That'll tend to polarize the group where people will draw towards that one.
Okay, if you have a member on your team that has a particular point of view and they've declared they're not changing their mind, it's this or nothing, that will do it. Yes.
A mindset of efficiency over relationship. If you're so focused on the task that you could care less who you're actually working with. Because what was really weird is when you said, like, have you ever been a part of these diverse teams? And all my thoughts were actually like really great ones because I happen to go to a really diverse church.
Okay.
And so all the groups that I've tended to work with are people that I've known for 9 years, that I've worked together with. And it's usually only been in the case where whatever the task was just drops to the wayside and we just are a family.
Mm-hmm.
And if something gets accomplished, that's great. And it might take quite a while, but I respect these people so much more, and we actually work together a lot better because we're more interested in just being together as family than whether or not anything's actually ever accomplished.
That might be a little hard to explain to your boss later, but I hear you. And she actually has a very valid point because it becomes less about the task and more about the people and the relationships. Now, let's see who I can put on the spot here in the room, but let me just ask, how many of you know for a fact you are task-oriented? Go ahead, just confess it. All right, and how many of you know for a fact you are more people-oriented? All right, and for the people-oriented people, you have a hard time, getting over to the task. And for those task-oriented people, you have a hard time getting over to the people. And when we put those groups all together, there's a clash of priority. Those that want the task done so we can move on to the next thing, and those that want the relationships to be held at the highest value, and if the work gets done, great. There is a clash there. So what are we going to do about all this? Let's go back for a second. Let's look at this list that we generated. This is my list, and add your list. But I'd like you to do some personal reflection. Take one of the 3x5 cards that's in the basket there. I want you to think about what's your default setting. If you had to look back at the teams you have pulled together, what are the characteristics of teams that you would prioritize every single time? Think through your default setting. Try not to say, well, now that we've sat here and talked about all this stuff, I know better. But your default setting, you're asked to put a team together. What's the most important characteristic that you're looking for? Now, I'll confess mine right off the bat. I said it last night when I was talking to Sandy. When I'm looking for a team, I'm thinking about what is the strategy, what needs to be accomplished, and who has the skills to get that done. So skill level goes whoop, right off the charts for me because I want qualified people in the room to get the job done. That's my default setting. What's yours? You can choose 3 to 5. Go ahead and choose 3 to 5.
Depends what the task is.
The truth about yourself. The state
of
the ideal. No, not the ideal. The state of the current reality. Confession is good for the soul, Paul.
Choose the truth.
Yeah, come up for air and look for the truth. this self-awareness step should take more time, but the clock is telling me I'm running out rather quickly. So, self-awareness, this morning, you heard it both from Chris and from Larry, the importance of knowing yourself, knowing your default settings, knowing, is my default setting a strength or is it a weakness in this case? And at any given time, it could be one or it could be the other. But you must know that about yourself. So if I am forming a team and I know that I am placing a higher priority on the skill level in the room, then I had best be looking at somebody else that is going to place a different priority in a different area so that it will compensate for my over-exaggeration of the need for skill in the room. But if I didn't know that that was my default setting, I would have a room full of skilled people, and I might have missed out on the benefits and the blessings of the diversity of the group. Now, we didn't list all of your benefits, but I have no doubt that there would have been common themes and threads that would have come up through there as well, that the benefits outweigh the challenges. Self-awareness, I'm going to have to click through some of this. I'm sure all of you if you have not had exposure to Johari's window, this is another self-awareness tool that helps you know what you know about yourself and what you don't know about yourself. Just quickly, how many of you have had exposure to this tool? Okay. If you haven't and would like to know more about this later, please come back to me. But 4 windows, 4 quadrants, it's all about information. What's public information? You know and I know that I'm wearing a white blouse. Public information. Private information. I know that I have 8 cats at my house right now. You don't know that. I mean, you didn't. Now it moved from private information into the public box. So the public box just got larger, didn't it? I've shared information. My blind area, this could be something that you know about me right now that I don't know about myself. And if you, as my co-workers, don't share this with me, I will never know this. I don't have what it takes to know this without you. And then lastly, the unknown box is the box that the Holy Spirit does. It's information that's unknown to me and unknown to you. But when we begin to mentor each other in this area, the public and private areas of information grow. So in diverse teaming, as you grow in your knowledge of yourself and your areas of strengths and weaknesses, those boxes are going to grow and you're going to get better at it because people are sharing with you how you are being perceived. And for those of you that think you know everything about yourself, come see me. I'll tell you something you don't know about yourself. Seriously, please don't be so blinded by that. Don't think that you are that introspective that you've got a full grasp about who you are and how you're impacting people. Larry talked a lot this morning about impact awareness, and he and I have had conversations about people that clueless about how they're impacting people. I'd give anything if they would come up to me and say, could you tell me how I come across? Sure. But those are not the people that ask that kind of question. We need leaders that are going to ask that question. How am I being perceived? It's like Larry said, you know, he found that third party, that other way of getting information about how his leadership, how he was impacting people as a leader. What am I missing? That's what the Johari window does. It raises you up to a place where you're growing in your own self-awareness. Okay, speeding right along here. Oh boy, great slide, huh? Let's just move on. The reality of this, of those slides, I'll say just very brief comment. A group mentality, which a lot of our partnering organizations come from value systems that honor the group. The group means I'm a part of that group. You're a part of that group. I once asked a Filipino friend of mine, how do you know when we're not acting as if we are part of the group? tell me how you know that. I mean, I feel like I'm a part of the group, but sometimes I think you're telling me I'm not acting like I'm a part of the group. And you know what she said? She said, maybe, Tammy, you should just count the number of times you use the word I in the course of a day. Yeah. How many times are you talking about yourself? And I don't mean I as in egocentric I, but I as in I'm an independent American who functions independently. And I'm not taking into consideration the we, the group. All right. We're going to have to skip over this, but there's lots of implications for team diversity on strategic planning. Think about any domain in which you work, and there's an implication. Finally, in closing, I was recently challenged by both a quote and a scripture. And I've asked Clara if she would read the quote for us.
That is going to call us once again to a deepening of our sensitivity to multi-ethnic issues and to a reaffirmation of our commitment to train multi-ethnic leadership and to apply biblical principles to the ways we relate to one another and to the ways we carry out ministry.
To apply biblical principles to the ways we relate to one another. Someday, when we are in heaven, worshiping, and Revelation 7:9 comes to pass, we'll know what this looks like. But until then, can we consider working in a way that brings Revelation 7:9 to earth today? Can we consider that type of Revelation 7:9 community is possible on earth? Father, bless us with the opportunities to work in ways that please you. And Lord, when we fail, I pray that you'll pick us back up and set us face forward once again in humility. And Lord, we look forward to the day when we will be with you and every tribe, tongue, and nation will be represented. But Lord, until such a day, I ask that we might create Revelation 7:9 communities that are indeed honoring you with all that we say and all that we do. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.